Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're not going to really do anything new. We're just going to approach the same questions, but without a calculator. Just know that if you struggled a little bit yesterday with the work, that's normal. This is one of those topics that takes a couple days, okay? So don't stress, and remember, keep sending me your questions. Don't be shy. All right, so let's review first of all. Typically, you have curves like this that maybe cross in just two places. And let's go over the formula. We have to find where they intersect. We'll call that A and B. Okay. To get the area between them, we subtract top curve minus bottom curve. We subtract from here to here to get this length. Okay, so f of x minus g of x. Then we want to get not just this length, we want this one, all of them working across. So we integrate from A to B. That's our general formula for the typical problems, okay? But what if the curve is a cubic? You got to know what a cubic looks like. So let's say I have a positive x cubed. Maybe it goes like this. And maybe I have a line or a parabola that goes like this, okay? Well, now what would your setup be? Well, first you'd have to get 3 points of intersection. Okay, so you have to find all of those. And if this curve was f of x and the line is maybe g of x, and we're trying to find this area, okay, let's call these points of intersection A, B, and C. Well, now remember, you have to subtract top minus bottom. So this first area would be f of x minus g of x from A to B. But then this is a separate area, so we would add that one on. And that one we would integrate from B to C. But the curves switched locations. Now the G is on top and the f of x is on the bottom. So you have to reverse this. G of x minus f of x. Okay? So same stuff today. Keep in mind, if it's a cubic, you should expect it intersects possibly more than the typical 2 places. You might have 3. And that means you'll have 2 separate areas that you have to find. Since yesterday you could use your calculator, sometimes you had to zoom out to see the full picture, see what was going on, okay? So the concept today isn't going to change. We're just going to try to find these points of intersection without a calculator. And we'll have to figure out which curve is on top without a calculator, okay? But we're going to do the same math. Oh, by the way, one last option. What if, let's take this picture again. Let's say we didn't want it to go to the 2 endpoints, and instead I wanted the area just between these lines. I wanted the area from here to here, okay? Well, if this was, say, the line x equals 2, and maybe this is the line x equals 5, and they would tell you that, and I just want this area in between, how would that change this setup? Well, our bounds would go from 2 to 5, 2 to 5. Okay, so if they give you vertical lines, then they're typically giving you the bounds. All right, so all of that hopefully is review. Now let's do a problem by hand. Okay, when you have to do the problem without a calculator, you really need to know what your graphs look like, okay? You need to know a negative parabola, a positive parabola, a negative cubic, a positive cubic. So real quick, another review. Your cubics, if it's a positive x cubed, it starts low and ends high. A negative x cubed starts high and ends low. Okay, so you kind of got to know what they look like. So this is a negative parabola of some sort. I mean, I know exactly what it looks like, but all I need to know is it's a negative parabola, and this is a negative line. So I know I'm going to have 2 points of intersection. Okay, I don't really need to know much more than that graph, but I do now need to find those points of intersection. So how do you find them? Just set your 2 equations equal. Okay, so let 2 minus x squared equal negative x. We want to know when they are equal. When are they in the same spot? Then you solve that in any way, shape, or form that you can. Well, this is an x squared equation, so I'm going to set it equal to 0. Move the x squared over, it'll make it a positive. Move the 2 over, that makes it a negative. Factor x minus 2, x plus 1. Set each factor equal to 0, we get negative 2 and, positive 2 and negative 1. Okay, put them in order from least to greatest. Negative 1 and then 2. Those are going to be your bounds. The negative 1 is going to be this guy. The 2 is going to be this guy. So put them in order. So now we know we're going to integrate. To get this area, we would integrate from -1 to 2. And then you got to figure out which curve is on top. Well, I think it's pretty obvious that the parabola would have to come first. So we're going to do 2 minus x squared minus the line, -x. Okay? Now, let's say you didn't know what the graph looked like, and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure out which curve comes first? Well, first of all, if you get a negative answer, you know you put the wrong curve first, okay? And reverse it. But the other way to figure it out is my bounds go from -1 to 2. Plug in any number between -1 and 2 into the two equations and see which one gives you a higher value. So I can plug in a 0 to this guy and to this guy, and it'll tell me that this one was higher in that region, okay? All right, so now let's review solving this by hand. Make sure you combine all like terms and integrate. And I have that on my PowerPoint, so let me get rid of all this. There, that's what we're trying to integrate. Power rule. Okay, plug in the 2 and the -1. Make sure you're very careful. Put parentheses around the 2's and the -1's with the minus sign. Okay, people are always messing up their signs. And when you're doing this math, it's typically easier to distribute the negative. Okay, and then turn them all into sixths probably. And I will tell you this. Again, this is typically an AP question. And if it were a non-calculator free response question, you get most of your points here and here. So if you get a problem where this computation looks like it's going to take too much time, skip it. Come back to it at the end of the test if you still have time, because the final answer, that fraction that you get, is really not worth the time, okay? This is what you want to do and get all your points there, okay? You may get this fraction right and waste time and have to miss 3 other points because of it, okay? All right, so just turn them all into the same denominator is probably the easiest way to do this, but in the end, you'd get 9/2. In your homework today, I want you to try to do 3 of them completely without a calculator, doing all the math by hand, okay? Including, and most importantly, the setup, which means understanding what your graphs look like, okay? So let's do another one. Or maybe go ahead and you do this one. You go ahead and set it up. I don't think you need to integrate the whole thing. Just give me the full setup and with the correct bounds and hit pause. We'll see if you get it right. Okay, so you should have set the curves equal. You should know this is a negative parabola and a negative line, so it looks kind of the same as the last one. And we're trying to find these points of intersection. We set them equal. We set it equal to 0. We get 1 and 5, put them in order. That means this one's 1 and this one's 5. Okay? On the AP exam, they often ask you simply to set it up and not solve. So let's say we did that. Then we would be integrating from 1 to 5. And the curve that's on top is the parabola. So 4x minus x squared minus 5 minus 2x. And I just intentionally did something bad on purpose. Okay? And people do this on the AP exam all the time. If this problem was just to set it up and you write this, you won't get credit. Hopefully you know why. What am I missing? You either need parentheses here or you need it to distribute correctly because it's mathematically incorrect without it. Okay? Now, if they just ask for the setup, you don't have to combine like terms, you don't have to print it up, you don't have to do anything. So you could even have, if they just asked for the setup, you know what? The safest thing would have been just write f of x minus g of x. That's the safest way to get away with it. Okay? All right, just a warning. I don't need you to actually solve that. You already know how to do the power rule. Again, make sure you practice one by hand in your homework. Okay, hello, my email is popping up. All right, this next one is a cubic and a line. Okay, so get a general sketch. It's a positive cubic and a positive line. I don't really care exactly what they look like, but this is what I should be visualizing in my mind. So I need to expect 3 points of intersection, okay? So do the same thing. Set your 2 equations equal to each other and find those points of intersection. Now this one requires some factoring that you may have forgotten how to do. It's called factor by grouping. So I can't take anything out of all 4 terms, so I just group the first 2 together. I can take out an x squared, and I'm left with x minus 3. And in the second group, I can't take out anything, but I do need the inside of the parentheses to be the same as this one. So I'm going to factor out a -1, and I'm left with x minus 3. Now factor out the x minus 3 that they both have in common, and you're left with x squared minus 1, which you can factor it again or set it equal to 0 as is. If you factor it again, it's a difference of squares. Or when you set it equal to 0, just remember when you square root, you get 2 answers, plus and minus. Okay, so put all these answers in order from least to greatest. I have a 3, a -1, and a 1, but I need to know in order from least to greatest. I would rewrite that -1, 1, and then 3. That means I'm going to integrate. This is going to be my -1, this is my 1, and this is my 3. So I'm going to be integrating from -1 to 1, and then separately I will integrate from 1 to 3. Okay? What else is going to change? The curves. You can see, if you graphed it, even just a sloppy sketch like I did, I can see that the cubic is written first in the first group, okay? So it's f of x minus g of x for the first one. And then it's going to flip-flop. So on the second one, it's reversed, g of x minus f of x. I need more room. Let me clean that up. Okay, so I rewrote everything. So hopefully you can see in the first section, the cubic is on top, f of x minus g of x, and then it flips, and the line is on top, g of x minus f of x. Okay, and if all you have to do is set it up, then you're done. If you're allowed to use a calculator, that's all you have to write on the paper and then the answer. Okay, remember, area is always positive. No matter where it sits on the graph, you can't have a negative area. It's impossible. So always make sure that this answer ends up positive and this answer ends up positive. If you ever get a negative area, you did it wrong. And probably what you messed up is your order here. Okay, now another tip. You could, if you don't know what that graph looks like, and maybe it's a more complicated problem, you could just put these bounds in order, the -1 to 1 and 1 to 3, without knowing what the graph looked like. And then to figure out which curve goes first, I could plug in a number between -1 and 1, like 0, into both equations. And that would tell me which curve is higher. So you could kind of get away with not graphing it, but graphing it is actually the quickest thing to do. All right, now obviously if you were doing this whole problem by hand, it would kind of stink because there's a lot of work going on there. You'd have to distribute the negative, do your power rule, and do all that math. Okay, I'm just worried about the concept for now though. You practice doing one by hand though, for sure, in your homework. Okay, so here's your assignment. 2, 4, and 6, numbers 2, 4, and 6, you should be able to completely set them up without looking at your calculator to see what the graph looks like, okay? Make sure you at least set up your integral for all 3 of these without looking at the graph, okay? Once you hit number 8 through 12, those are meant to be done with calculator for sure, okay? And you'll see when you look at them. Then number 20, try to do that one also without a calculator, if at all possible. Okay, that means you can integrate that by hand. Try to figure out what that graph looks like, okay? All right, please let me know if you have specific questions. Please tell me what I can work out for you. We're going to be working more with this on Monday. Good luck. Hope you guys are doing well. Go Bucks!